Caitlin, back when I was a student athlete, not too long ago, I wasn't able to receive any compensation for the use of my name, image, or likeness. Things have changed significantly in the past several years. Can you give us an overview of what's changed?
Yeah, happy to. And like you said, things have changed a lot. I'd say probably in the last decade, but really rapidly in the last 4 to 5 years. So, but to get a full picture of, where we were, what the rules were, where we are now, and how we got there, I think we have to go back in time, probably before you were a student athlete, but back to 2009 with the Ed O'Bannon case. And the reason that case, I think, is where this whole movement started, or these changes started, is because it was the first time the question or the issue of student athletes' ability to monetize, utilize their NIL was in court, in public opinion, in press, being talked about, being thought about. So that case, Ed O'Bannon played basketball at UCLA. And he was also, as were many basketball players at UCLA and across the nation, and football players, they were featured in EA Sports college sports video games. And they were featured with their avatars that looked a lot like the player. They had the same number, the same stats, they had the same kind of flair in how they would play. And this lawsuit brought by Mr. O'Bannon was on behalf of himself and the other student athletes that were in these games. And he said, well, the theory of the case was we should be monetized. They're using our name, image, and likeness, and we're not being compensated. So the suit was against the NCAA, saying, NCAA, you should not be able to make any rules that prohibit us from monetizing our name, image, and likeness in video games. And so that case made its way through the courts, ultimately was resolved in 2014. The video games, as some of you might have noticed, I know probably some people here played them, are not on the shelves right now. There was a settlement with EA Sports, and they're not currently in distribution. Fast forward a bit, because that was 2014. Between 2014 and 2018-19, we had a slower period, but it was kind of, I think, the on-ramp to where we are now. And during that time, we had increasing public debate about student athletes and about the ability for them to engage in social media, and particularly with, during this time, the rise of influencers and how social media completely changed from, pre-2009 to 2018, maybe 2019. And that's where I think we really kind of hit the gas in getting to where we are now. So 2018-19, California was the first in the nation to introduce legislation that would permit student athletes to monetize their NIL. And that was the Fair Pay to Play Act. And that was enacted in September 2019. Many states after that followed. And they followed very quickly, and they tried to beat California to enactment time. So California's law was set to be effective January 2023. Other states like Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, Oregon, Georgia, Illinois, Pennsylvania, a few others, they all said, no, we're going to have a similar law. It's going to take effect July 1st, 2021. So cutting off California. And the NCAA rules at that time were the same as they had been pre and post O'Bannon, which was you could not monetize your NIL. It would affect your eligibility, and ultimately you'd be ineligible to play. So what the NCAA ended up doing was putting together a working group to look at whether or not there were rules that could be put in place, how to do that. What ultimately came about was the interim NIL policy that took effect July 1st, 2021, the same day as all these state laws were to take effect. And that's what we have now. And what that says is, yes, student athletes can engage in NIL activity, and they can do so without that jeopardizing their eligibility. They can monetize it. They can also use professionals. They can use agents to do that. So that's where we are. That's how we got here. I guess kind of a long-winded way and a history lesson on how we got here. But we went from you could not do it to a patchwork of different state laws to now, if you're in a state that permits you to use your NIL, you can. If you're in a state that doesn't have a law on it, you can. And, the NCAA has been going by that policy. They've issued a few guidances along the way, but nothing has really changed that, yes, student athletes can monetize their NIL.